Welcome, everyone. My name is Justin, your Believer Made Unbeliever podcast host.
And I'm Kevin, the devout Christian presence on this podcast.
And this is the Tiger and Lamb podcast,
a ChristianQuisition production.
And what does that mean, Kevin? Do you even know?
Tell me, Justin, where does that come from?
Well, you're going to hear us reference the idea of ChristianQuisition. That is our domain. That's the domain that we purchased. We filed a business license in the state of California under the term ChristianQuisition podcast. And then, of course, in the recording of the first episode, we came across a title that we liked a lot more, but we were kind of too dug in at that point. Would you say, Kevin?
There was paperwork and everything.
There was money spent. There was paperwork. And we're not that big budget yet. You know, we can't just be buying domains left and right. It's like $56 for 3 years of ownership of a domain. And then you got to pay the Squarespace account. It's like $200 a year. Oh my goodness. It's just, you know,
I still
impossible.
drive a gasoline automobile, so we can't be spending
just behind the times.
Kind of
you know what I mean? Anyways, we had this idea, obviously, for the podcast that would be myself, former Christian, somebody who strongly identified as a devout Christian. I wanted to be a pastor. I was very invested in Christian theology. I really love the conversations, the belief system, the history, and yet, of course, here I am. But I still have a healthy respect for what I think is a religion, a belief system, a faith that has a lot of incredible ethics and lessons and stories, and maybe some controversial things and things that I don't like so much. And I realized that in my departure from the faith, I was being told by so many non-Christians who were critical of Christianity. They felt more comfortable criticizing Christianity in my face because they're like, oh, he's not a Christian anymore. He'll love to talk crap about it, right? And I didn't, in fact. And I realized that a lot of these opinions that were being spouted at me by non-Christians, expecting me to agree with them on account of my identification as a non-Christian, were just as ignorant as quite a few of the opinions I was hearing from inside the church, which I found kind of interesting. So I invited Kevin over to discuss a podcast where we would come and have respectful conversations about Christianity, about the challenges, the beauty, the ethics, and modern Christian culture in a more vivid light, I suppose. So we came up with this idea. We originally had this idea for a title of Christian X Christian, but theologically speaking, there are many out there, Kevin included, who don't believe in the concept of an ex-Christian. So he didn't feel comfortable putting his name on something that really just like right out the gate created misinformation or a misunderstanding of his interpretation of Christianity. So we looked for other puns. We came up with this idea of ChristianQuisition, which is just obviously the combination of the terms Christian and Inquisition. And an Inquisition, which most people think about the Spanish Inquisition, a bloody affair, which we've recently learned happened in Spain, of course.
Good or not.
But yeah, it was a recent discovery for us. And Inquisition, the dictionary definition of the term has nothing to do with history, right? It's actually just a deep inquiry into something, okay? That's not the exact dictionary definition. I apologize. I'm not going to Google that right now. But it's a deep inquiry into, in this case, Christianity. And a deep level of, an investigation, research, and a deeper understanding of asking questions. What do you know? Inquisition involves asking questions. And during the filming of the first podcast, or rather recording of the first podcast episode, which hopefully you'll listen to and hopefully you'll understand what we're referencing when, you move forward and listen to that episode, we'd really appreciate it. We stumbled across what we eventually decided would be our actual podcast title. And so we sort of transitioned ChristianQuisition into the sort of label above Tiger and Lamb with the intention of, branching out into other creative works, creating other potential podcasts that probably deal with similar subject matter, but perhaps Kevin wants to host his own, I want to host my own, or we want to have other people on, or we want other people to be able to host podcasts under the label if we're ever fortunate enough for it to be successful. But we just, don't want that to be too confusing for anybody. Anyways, I've hogged the mic for too much. I know that Kevin has wanted to sort of introduce some things as well in this lovely prologue episode.
Yeah, so you'd mentioned that you invited me over to talk about this podcast idea, but that was not the first time we met. Contrary to what most people think, we actually known each other for many years before that, and I thought it would be neat to talk about how we first met. So it was many years
hold on.
ago.
Do most people think we met when we were planning to construct a podcast?
A lot of people I've been talking to, engaging with about this. Yeah, it's a pretty big misconception, and I think even there's YouTube videos made about it, and there's a little blurb beneath the video saying with a Wikipedia link, this is actually how they met.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that the misinformation is really tampered down.
In 10 years, this might be true, everyone. So.
Mm-hmm. So I'm setting the record straight right now, right here. So it was a frigid 65-degree evening in San Diego, California. And we were in an office building. Now, it wasn't just any office building. It was a church office building, of course.
Very hipster one.
Yeah, it was. There were, cool pieces of art to be found.
Pieces of plywood and random things that you would think are garbage, but hung up on the wall for aesthetic purposes.
Succulents, for example.
Lots of succulents.
There was a whiteboard, because I remember we were meeting in the boardroom, I guess you could say.
The war room.
The war room. That sounds a lot better. We were in the war room. So Justin and I were part of a college group, and they divided us up into small groups. And so that's how we first encountered each other. And we had a good group discussion. I couldn't even tell you what it was about. It was probably just first day at school kind of stuff, like, this is what we talk about. This is what we're here for. What's your name? What do you do? And Justin, myself, and I think a few other people were straggling along too, but we talked long after that. I want to say an hour and a half, to the point where we were out into the parking lot in the frigid San Diego night. And we were talking at first, I think, a little bit about theology, but it branched into philosophy and politics and all that fun stuff. Don't worry, folks. We're not going to be talking about politics.
That's not what this podcast is. Maybe another one under the ChristianQuisition label in the future, but not.
We're going to be somewhat offensive, but we want to have listeners at the end of the day, so we're not going to go into all that. But I just remember thinking, this guy is really young, and I looked young, but I wasn't as young.
Yeah, fun fact, I thought this guy was really young, but he was 4 years older than me.
Yeah. So, anyways, I just remember thinking, he has a lot going on in that head, and we talked a lot, and I enjoyed it. And usually with social situations like that, I kind of want to do my time and get out. But that time, I wanted to stick around. And although, maybe circumstances have changed, I think you and I both have that rapport still where we can talk for a long time and enjoy it.
Yeah. The circumstances have changed, but the conversation continues.
Anyways, that's a good place to end it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, just as a last little insert here to say, this is the prologue. This is not really a demonstration of what this conversation is going to be.
We'll be better.
If we're being completely honest, the prologue is kind of just something that a lot of podcasters use in order to get approved on all of the different hosting sites like Apple, Amazon, and all that jazz. We're one of those people who need to do that. So if you skip this episode and you don't even know that we're saying this, you didn't miss anything. But Thank you for listening, and hopefully we see you guys around for episode 1.